So we must remain faithful and trustworthy of the stewardship that we have been given, right? This is obvious. It's just like if I leave you in my house and and I say, hey, I have entrusted unto you all of these things. You must remain a good steward over the things that I have entrusted unto you to have. It's common sense, y'all. And this is the test of life. In other words, there are greater things that we shall accomplish among this stewardship, and this leads to everlasting life or things that are beneficiary for our lives. This is how you will be tried and tested on what you do on this earth now. If you have caused nothing but pain and trouble and sorrow, all types of strife, bitterness, jealousy, envy, pride, if you have caused those things, then you yourself will be given over to everlasting punishment, sorrow. You will not have life more abundantly. You will not rule and reign the source and the creator, the Most High God, the God who you hate. And even if you want to say that there is no God and you are an atheist, you are still a conscious being. And therefore, because you are a conscience, you are wrapped inside of this flesh, and when you leave this flesh, you go on into another state. And that state is eternity. Energy never dies. And we see that energy can be contained, but we also see that the energy that is contained in these bodies has awareness and is consciousness, and and knows what is good and what is evil. This is a faculty that is within man. So we see this, people, and we understand this. So we must be able to decipher. We must be able to learn the life and overcome and pass it. Where am I getting this from? Where do I learn this from? I've learned this from life, and then learning it from the concepts of life, then coming to an age to where I read the biblical text, and I see the same thing is there. So then if they want to escape that and say, well, that's only in the Bible, no. The ancestors believed that we was in a stewardship or given an administration just as well. Whether you want to deal with the Nile Valley, whether you want to deal with the cultures that was in Mesopotamia, Europe, or the Americas. These people was concerned about their life which they lived here, as well as the life hereafter. That's what gave them the question, where do we go when we die? Do we live on? Or do we cease to exist? Do we come back as an individual in the next life on this earth? Is this the cycle of life? Or do we pass on to a state of immortality where we become the forces and are over the forces and govern the forces of nature? This is what they was dealing with. Let me get this mic real quick. Peace, 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 Mikael.
Peace, LeBron. What's up with you, man?
What's going on, bro?
I just hopped in, man. I listened to this other show. They was talking about the battle between weaves and afros or something, man. It was too funny, so I had to click on over what you
Yeah,
got going
man,
on.
that's crazy. Man, just talking about the test of life, man. Basically, how no matter what you deal with whatever type of belief system or whatever you believe is fact, we still are occurring. We still go through the test of life, and stewardship and administration is given to us. And whatever we do in this life, it will affect us in the next life. Whether you want to deal scientifically with you being energy, and you die, whether you say you going back to the earth, there is consciousness that is within you. And they can't deny the consciousness that's within them that causes them to be aware as well as to the conscience of what is good and evil. So they may say, well, does that die? And does that only deal with the brain? Nah. I think as a whole, consciousness is outside of the brain. Consciousness is something that is awareness of living and this outside of this body. So while you're on this earth, we must remain to be good stewards over the administration that we have been given. Then most people say, well, you only have one life to live. They say as if that's a fact, as if they actually know that. And who told them that? You only got one life to live. I think that's more of something that is a assumption. So therefore, if they say, well, life after death is an assumption, well, we have historical ancestors that always dealt with life after death. And then also, scientifically, energy never dies. Now the thing is, do we attach that energy to, or that spirit to, a consciousness or conscience? That's the question. And I think that's something that we should always attach to the inner man, as well as to when that inner man is in the body and when he's dealing with the physical realm. I think that the ancients attached it to the inner man. Person die and say, well, this person is detached away from consciousness or to be conscious. No, you can't do that. That's the whole thing. What is the duty of man and his morals and his code? Does outside of the body good and evil exist? Negative and positive. Does those things exist? One may say, well, it's dealing with his perception of what is negative or what is positive, or as we talked about the other day when we talked about subjective morality. What's your take on it?
That's a good subject, bro. I'd say a perfect explanation would be, and you're absolutely right. Who told you? But that's what that's what I come to realize, that that's going to be the dividing factor in the world population. You have those that's just never going to believe more than they can see, and you have those that those same people will call dreamers, because we believe not necessarily just blind stuff, but we have evidence of other things that help us affirm or confirm that there's more to life than this here. Perfect example, I think, would be, I think it's John chapter 3, like verse 11 through 12. I think it's John chapter 3, 11 through 12. I'm outside right now. You got your sword? And and I think about it because you know the things that the scriptures told us. He told us, you can go all the way back as far as Job. Daniel will tell you that, you know, there's people that's going to wake to either everlasting contempt and shame, or, you know, they're going to have that everlasting, you know, glory, that peace, you know, that paradise. I'm paraphrasing now. And you know, and then other times it's said like there's a lake of fire. So there's a yin and a yang. There's everything that you do here will be weighed on a scale. I think it's John chapter 3. I'm not mistaken.
Hold on for a minute.
John chapter 3. I'm pretty sure it's like verse 11 and 12. Yeah, because it gets to talking about. It gets to talking about he that rose up and ascended, but I'm not focused on that part, just on the 11 and 12, because that kind of answers it.
Hold on. I'm driving to the city right now.
Okay. But, yeah, man, but I believe it says, you know, it goes up to the nature of, you know, if you can't even understand earthly things, you know, how can you really grasp the concept of something in heaven, something that's on a totally different level? And, you know, so I think we disable ourselves to that type of vision, though, to that type of understanding. We get so caught up in what's going on. I believe it's John chapter 3. Yeah, I believe it's 11 and 12. It's 2 verses.
It says, "Verily I say unto you."
Yeah.
Verily I say unto you, we speak that what we do know, and testify that we have seen, and ye receive not our witness. If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how should ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things?
Bam! I mean, that's clear. So it has to come down to the fact, because somebody, look, even if you don't read the Bible, some old man, grandmama, granddaddy, uncle, somebody you looked up to with some wisdom has said some stuff to you when you was little growing up, you know, and they told you, you got to watch how you treat people, man, because you will end up like this. You know, they even tell you stuff like, man, you know, I remember they tell us even about making fun of people, you know, people that was kind of maybe retarded or something like that, because it might come out in your seed. And that is the physical, that is the spiritual manifested through physical acts, things of this. And, you know, some of it is, you know, wives' tale, some of it is superstition, but I believe it's the root of truth in all these things. So, you know, yeah, it's becoming taboo to talk about things like this. You either have to be a religious hard, as they say, or you really over the top with the chakras and the nature and all that, when I think just the common human being knows that this ain't where it ends at. That's really my thing, bro.
Exactly. Let me bring some things out real quick. Now, when we talk about, I want to break down when we talk about ages or age within itself. The Hebrew word for age is F, and it means it's H6256, right? And we bring it up. Let me pull it up. It means time, especially now when, etc., after, certain continually evening, long, due season, so long as evening, noon, tide, meal, what time, right? So we see it, what age actually means, right? So we see that there, right? So when you talk about ages, in the Greek, the word is aeon, right? G165. Meaning a period rather of long or short time, season, to sense there are numberless ages. So we have what you call past ages, We have what you call present ages, and also future ages, and also creative ages, right? So reason why I'm reading this because when you deal with dispensation, dispensation itself is defined as a moral time, or a moral time basically, or an administration, right? So, for instance, let me jump to this real quick. It says, 1 Corinthians 9:17, for if I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, a dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me. So, in other words, he's saying a administration or stewardship of the gospel is committed to me. So we see that in each dispensation, there is a age or a time or a period, basically. So we see that, right? So watch what it says. When we look at let's jump to another scripture, Ephesians 1:10. It says that in the dispensation of the fullness of times he might gather together one in all things in Christ, both which are in heaven and which are on earth. So the administration of stewardship, which is this time given. So we see that the concept of dispensation is definitely there. So you're given a stewardship or administration period, and what you do with that administration or that time period, you will have to give account for. One of the things that we see when the man had talents, they was given talents. When they was given those talents, they was given the administration of stewardship with those talents that they have. They had to give account on what they did with those talents. And we read about the story when Jesus was coming, and he came into them, and he told the parable about the man that was given talents, and one of them took his talents, and he did not increase those talents or for the usury, and he basically was called a wicked, unprofitable servant, right? So this is what we're dealing with. So also let's bring out Colossians 1:25. Colossians 1:25 of the usage of it. It says, wherefore I am made a minister according to the dispensation of God which is given to me. So we see once again this word is being used, dispensation. So we can see how it's being defined, that it is basically dealing with one who has a stewardship or has been given an assignment or administration, as we can see, right? So we see that this word being used. The Greek word is okavayua, nomia. Okonomia, that's what it is. From 36:23. Administration of a household, that's what it says. Or of a state, especially a religious economy, dispensation, or stewardship, right? It's used 4 times of dispensation, and stewardship 3 times. So we see that, right? So the management of a household or of a household affairs, specifically the management of oversight, administration of others' property. As I used the paraphrase earlier when I tried to convey a scripture to you or convey some information to you on one being a stewardship over a household. As we see Christ telling plenty of times, one being a steward over the household, and either he is a faithful steward or either if he is a wicked steward. If he is a faithful steward, he is made a ruler over much. If he handles that stewardship or administration good. This is what this is dealing with. So this ain't far-fetched. Administration, stewardship, dispensation, or guardianship, right? These are things that are referenced to a probationary period. That's what we must look at. Or to an age, which can be a short time or a long period. Because dispensations follow through, and these are the dealings of basically of how God deals with us. And these periods reflect on his dealings, whether of historical, present, future dealings on how God deals with us or deal with free moral agents, as we see, right? Now, these dispensations are dealt with not just on man, but also on every creature or every being. They have a stewardship or administration that is given to them, which is a moral time, and also which is a certain age, whether short or long, and also is God's dealings with on these individuals, on the way He deals with these individuals or collective people. So we see that there. Now, these are how the affairs are ministered on earth or in the universe. This is what we're dealing with. So in these dispensations, I know I got a lot of wind in the background. In these administration periods, you have what you call the name of these the name of these administrations. You have what you call always in them a favorable beginning. So this is what you call the 9 points of these stewardships or administrations. You have the test of responsible agents. So there's always a test of life that's within your life that we must look at. It's always there. Something that we cannot deny. It's always there. And how you walk that test out, how you walk through life, determines your eternity. Let me say that again. How you walk this life out, the role that you play in this life determines your eternity. If you are a negative person or negative energy, you will be contained. If you are a positive person, you will have life and more abundantly, and you will have eternal life, and you will rule and reign for an eternity with your Creator, that you may be all in all with Him, that God may be all in all, right? So we have also the test for these responsible agents. Adam had his test. In the anti-chaotic age before man, the angels had their test, we believe. You also have the purpose in God testing man. Why did God test man? What is His purpose behind testing man? The same purpose behind God testing man is the same purpose that we see when man tests. Guess what? Individuals are also mechanisms within this world, right? Testing to see those free moral agents will remain true unto what they have been entrusted to, what they have been given to be stewardship over, to have stewardship over. What things that are subject unto them, they are tested to see what they remain true unto instructions and administration that have been given unto them, right? So we see that there is a purpose for God in each one of these dispensations of these historical present and also future dealings that God is dealing with man on. What is God's means, which is another point on God, what is His means of accomplishing His means of these tests and of this administration? What did He test them with? What did He test Adam with? He tested Adam with the tree of knowledge of good and evil to see would Adam disobey Him and trust in Him and remain true to Him. So what is His means by how He tests man? Every man is tested a certain way to see if that man will remain true and overcome And if he overcome, then he is given basically the benefits of life and more abundantly. And we see the failure of the responsible agents. Every agent or free moral agent, a free moral agent just means they have choice. They have the decision to either choose to abide in those instructions that was given to them, or they could choose to walk outside of the administration or the stewardship that they was given within the probationary period. Right? This is what we see. So, God's provision that we see of these responsible agents. We see that the failure of these agents, we see that how they failed. How did Adam fall? He fell because he failed because he did not follow the instructions of the Creator, which caused a penalty upon him. So we looked at the failure of the responsible agents, came to the next point, which is the 8th point within this dispensation. The 8th point is, guess what? The judgment upon these responsible agents. Why do it says responsible agents? Because when you are a responsible agent, then you are given, once again, stewardship, administration, and you are responsible for that administration and that stewardship that you are given. Those things that are subject unto you. You are responsible for that child. That child must eat, must have food and shelter. So you are responsible, right? So you are given this administration, right? So we see that. What was God's provision of reconciliation from these agents that fall? There's a reconciliation period. If you fall, there's been given reconciliation. For instance, when Adam fell, he was given a substitute. That substitute was foreshadowed of Christ that will die for, guess what? For his iniquity and the iniquity of the world. That his blood, that his death and his blood must be on one. I mean, his sin must be put on one, and that one must shed his blood who knew no sin, who did not commit that sin, which was Christ, that he may die for the world. This is what the sacrifices is dealing with. Innocent blood being shed to appease or to reconcile or to atone or to cover for one sin or one missing the mark. What is sin? When you look at the sin in the Hebrew, it means kata'ah or kata as the root. It means to miss the mark. One that misses the mark. And when you miss the mark or when you break a contract or a covenant, then you must atone or cover or make reconciliation, or you must be a ransom for what you have missed or what you have broken, for the contract that you cut and you have broken that contract. This is what we're dealing with, people. So this is the whole breakdown of what a dispensation is. I will be doing more classes on it while I'm seated and I'm able to break down the whole thing, but just in general, just giving y'all a basic of it. And we can see this now today, and we can relate this to the world that we're living in now, and look at this in the biblical text and realize that this world now is a test and it's a stewardship. You are given something, and what you are given, you must remain true to what you are giving, and a good trustee of what you are given. So that's the whole thing of it.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing of it.
If I might add on this note, to get real serious with it on this perfect note that you bringing up, with what we do in this lifetime and the consequences for it and thereafter. Today, for those, and it made international news, the national news, but those in the shy should be well aware of it. But today, they caught the murderer of the 9-year-old boy. You know what I'm saying? The 9-year-old boy. Hey, how you doing? The 9-year-old boy. You know what I'm saying? He was shot 9 times, so it wasn't no accident. They was outside or whatever, and it was a war going on between, two rival gangs or whatever, and they was looking for his father, supposedly, and they couldn't find his father, but they knew the little boy was his son. So the little boy was out there playing with all the kids, and they lured him away from the other kids and took him in the alley and executed him, shot him 9 times. Now, for the world to get that code that you intentionally execute in broad daylight now, a 9-year-old child, target him out because his father is from a rival sect and y'all into it. That there, they caught the dude. All I could say is I don't. It's certain, it says it's never too late. He got to do serious repenting. But I'm gonna be quite honest with you, man. It also talk about them that do things to children and offend the children, man. That's a bad thing to come from under. So a person like that, there's no way we can't have the concept that even if you die here in this life, it's something worse for you for what you done. And that's I just want to bring that out there, man. So, I like to pray for the family and say, hopefully y'all got a little bit of closure to the family of Lil Tyshawn Lee. This is Mikael, man, giving love to the family if y'all listening.
Exactly. And see, that's the thing. We must realize that when you talk about conscience, conscience is attached to the energy that's within the body, whether you like it or not. Now, whether you want to believe that you are a conscious being, one that is aware to what is good and evil, and the faculty that's embedded in man, you got to believe even scientifically that you continue on. The energy does not die. Energy continues on. And that energy is attached to your conscience. That's why when we deal with the ancient perspective, they was always concerned about where do you go when you die? Where do you go? So you can't escape judgment. For instance, even when you deal with the biblical text, it talks about the heart being weighed and judged. Well, when you get off into the Kemetic text or Nile Valley text, or you get off into the Pert M. Heru, it's nothing different. It's the same thing. One is judged when he comes before Mayat. And Mayat is a principle which is present as we see before and after death. So there is balance. And Mayat is what is good, what is balanced, what is right. And this exists in the material world and also in the unmaterial world or immaterial world. So we got to realize there ain't no escaping judgment. If you are doing foul things here and now, you will be judged in the afterlife. When you look at every ancient culture, they had a perspective of what happens in the realm of the natural world and also in the realm of the immaterial world, things that are not seen with the natural eye. So we realize that if you are in the natural world and you are doing much evil because the energy that is in you is something that is negative, then you are contained. You are locked up. You are given over to the prison system or the justice system. And when you look at the justice system is viewed as having scales and a balance, because there must be equality and there must be a just weight and justice. So we see that. So this is common within the material world and also in the natural world. The question that we ask ourselves in life is, why are we here? Why are we here? Where do we come from? Where do we go after we die? Those are the questions that are so important that it causes us to study self, material world, that we must understand the immaterial world. That's why we see ology and the study of everything, because it helps us to understand what the immaterial world has to offer us. What drives, what is the force behind the material, what is the force when we look at the material world? And this is a scripture. And this is also when we look at what you call souls above and souls below. These are the concepts that we see in scripture when it says the natural world. While we look, it says, matter of fact, it says the things that we see with our eyes are temporary, but the things that we don't see, that are unseen, is something that is eternal. Why is it saying that? Because the things that are unseen with the eye is something that is eternal. The things that we see with our natural eyes is something that is subject to change, that is temporal. It's temporal. It's temporary, y'all. So when we look at the natural things, it can change. But when we look at the things that are unseen with the eye, these are eternal things. These things are eternity. Or when we deal with the concepts of so as above, so as below, these are things, that is a concept that the things that we see in this material world exist also in the world that's in the afterlife, or what we call the duat or amduat in the Egyptian term. So these are the aspects of Egyptian existence, as well as the aspect when we deal with life after death, when we're dealing with the biblical text. It's similar in a way. It's just.
And if I might add, out of those things, those questions that you submitted out there, I would like to also ask, what is our duty to fellow man? What is our duty to the other inhabitants in this life? What is our duty to our wives, husbands, sons, daughters, brothers, sisters, mother, and father? And it's funny because that can be answered in this book that I won't name, but everybody got one laying around their house somewhere, in every hotel room.
And it's crazy you said that, because not can it only be answered in this book, but it's also answered in other ancient cultures. They can't escape it.
Yeah, it is.
Like no matter where you go, for instance, when you deal with in the Nile Valley, the Pert Emeru, when you talk about Mayat is balance. In other words, you as an individual, you yourself are a judge. You are what you call, when you come before the hall, or when you come before the judgment of Mayat, you must balance yourself or govern yourself just as well. Your heart is judged, right? And it must be truth. So when you look at that, your duty is to preserve Mayat in the world, in this world, which is to preserve balance, and also in the next world to preserve Mayat. Because if you don't govern yourself accordingly in this world, when you die and you go into exist, or you cease to exist in the body, when you die, your personality of who you are, as we see that heart, which is the soul or the ib in the Egyptian concept of existence after life, that is judged. So therefore, that is your soul. That is who you are. That is how you feel. Because the heart is someone, when they say, well, I feel this way, or my heart ache, because the heart actually ache. So the heart is the existence after death, and that thing exists to be your soul, your vital spark, just as well as your ka and your ba, which deals with your personality or the spirit that's in existence after death. These are things that are judged after death. Okay, so if you're not preserving Mayat or balance now, and you're not balanced with it now, when you come into the afterlife and you're not balanced, you are given to Amut, so you cease to exist. You cannot escape it in the Egyptian text or any Nile Valley text or even in the biblical text. Even though they try to pervert it as when you deal with certain texts that say that you can pay money to escape judgment or you can issue this spell to escape this judgment in this hall or in this purgatory. No, none of that is taking place. See, this is not like the world that we see now where you can pay bond money to escape a certain situation. No, it's not like that at all. So most people, what they try to do is they try to scientifically escape judgment. Listen, there are laws that is outside this world, this physical realm. There are laws that is outside of us, and there are laws that is in this world. You never cease to exist as a spirit. You are eternal. You are energy. And that spark that is within you, that vital spark that is within you, never cease to exist. It can be contained. It's just like when you're dealing with, for instance, a battery, negative and positive. Now, energy is power, it's strong, it's powerful, right? Now, we use a negative or a what you call a ground to balance or control that energy. Because if that energy is not controlled, then it causes aggressive sparks and vital aggressive energy, right? So when we use the ground to control that energy, we use that by means because we know that if it is not controlled, then guess what? It will cause violent, excessive power throughout that uncontrolled power throughout that instrument or that vehicle, whatever you're using, right? Just as I said that, it is the same. It's nothing different. When you're dealing with people that have in them a vital spark or this power or this energy, if that energy is aggressively, energy is an energy that must be contained due to the fact that it is running rapid and it is not flowing properly, then we know that it must be contained. It has to be contained. It's just like if you got negative energy just running out rapidly through this world, and you got molestation or you got predators out here, those predators must be dealt with so there can be balance in moral society. And this is the thing. We have what you call a government system where there is no morality. There is what you call subjective morality, where one's perception of what is good and evil, according to the self-conscience that is embedded in him as a faculty, those things are only right unto him. So if he has corrupted his morality, if he has corrupted that mechanism, that light that's within him that caused him to be universal with the universe, with nature, or with God himself, then he himself has corrupted those things, and he looks at what is good, what is evil as good now. So the things that was good, he cannot decipher now. So therefore, this is why we have what you call written law. Because what does written law do? Written law governs you. These are the dispensations about. The Bible deals with administration and stewardship. So when you say, why did God do this or why did he do that? What was the purpose for the devil? There's a dispensation of angels, which is called the chaotic age, before man even came to the earth. The chaotic age was due to the fact of angels themselves was given these dispensations, these 9 points. They was given a favorable beginning. They had choice. And if they chose not to walk in the ways or instructions of the Creator, which is the source, then they themselves will be cut off. And to be cut off is degeneration and also decay. So when you talk about death and decay to the fact of radioactive particles, material. So when you talk about radioactive, it's unstable due to the fact of it's not balanced. And when something is not balanced, guess what it's going to do? It's going to break down because it's not unstable. It's not stable, so it breaks apart. And this is how it comes into the physical realm when it causes mutations within the genes or your genetics. And this is what we call decay or degeneration from being unbalanced and detached from the source. So when the scripture says that the last enemy of God is death, physical death, then we know physical death in actuality is degeneration because man is decaying. So once he's decaying, it means he's cut from the source. He's cut from the source. So once he decays, he dies, and everything that's within his realm dies because it is attached to the source. So the last enemy of God is death. What is death? Death is physical death, also spiritual death, and also eternal death. All of them have one thing in common, that is separation from the source. When one dies physically, he is separated from the body, his inner man. So if he is separated from the body, then Kubati dies. What does that do? That goes back unto the earth, and when it goes back to the earth, it causes problems within the earth too, whether it's taking diseases to the earth or the blood to the earth, whatever the case may be, it's like a reduce, reuse, recycle aspect. That's why the earth must be fermented and cleaned, as the Bible says. In the last days, the earth will be burnt and fermented and cleansed from every unclean thing in the universe, and there must be a new heavens and a new earth. There must be a new universe and a new earth. Radioactivity is caused due to the fact of judgment and being cut from the source. If God said that he will be all in all, that means there will be balance in God because God is all in all. And the universe will be all in all again, where radioactivity will not cause us to decay or particles to be broken down because of they're not balanced from a parent to a daughter element. So when we look at the narrative of the biblical text, whether you want to say that it's not true or figurative, what do we see? We see Adam himself causing judgment on the ground due to the fact of being cut from the source. And the source of this earth or the universe is attached to the creator. And if he's cut from the creator and the source, and he's the source, then his very physical realm is cut and it will degenerate. So we look at the ground, the first thing, the ground being cursed. Well, Adam eats from the ground, and also the animals eat from the ground. So if the ground is cursed because it's cut from the source, then everything within his paradigm will degenerate and decay. And this is why we have mutations within the DNA, on the chromosomes, because this is the problem. You talk about natural selection. Natural selection never talks about the origin of things, of how we came about, but it talks about how the genetics are mutating, and the problem due to environment and diet, of being of particles that are radioactive that are dying out or either mutating due to the fact of environment or diet. The majority of mutations that we have upon our genomes is causing us to expire. There's no upkeeping of this body. This body is dying due to the atmosphere and also due to what we eat. The atmosphere affects what we eat, and we take on those radioactive particles, generate and decay. That is the same tool that they use to measure the half-lives within particles breaking down or being unstable and breaking down from parent elements into daughter elements. This is what we're dealing with, y'all. The Bible talks about all of these things. The fall of man and man's test is evident on this earth. When Adam felt that test, he took upon him a supplement or information, because food is information. That's why the narrative giving us food, because food is information. Diet, climate plays a great role with you mutating, with your expiration. If your universe is something that is unbalanced, and you partake of the things that's in the universe that is unstable and unbalanced, you yourself will die, and you will decay, and you will degenerate. This earth is dying. This universe is dying. And it's not getting better because there's no upkeeping of it, because it's cut from the source. Who is the source? The Creator. So the games is over with us saying that there is no God. We have more evidence for a God through sacrificing and atonement when we look at the text. Innocent blood being shed due to the fact of to appease these gods or reconcile or to cut a contract with these gods or these divine ones or deities or what we call ancestors. So the test is here, y'all. And whether you pass this test now.
A brief moment of encouragement. I just want to say, preach, brother, preach. Me and one of the brews sitting right here listening to you, boy. You preaching. Get in.
Appreciate it. So we see that us dying and we're degenerating because we are cut from the source, because we have in us embedded to know what is right and what is wrong. And when you don't do the instructions of the Creator, then are you cut. And everything that is subject to you is cut too. So one would say, well, how come the animals have travail in birth just as well? They travail in birth just as well due to the fact of what they eat. So you are what you eat. And if you eat from what is cursed, then guess what? You will become that. Diet and climate takes place in the mutations upon you. You want to say something, brother? You got your mic open.
Oh, no, I was listening. My fault. I thought I was muted. I'm following you.
Yeah, so this is what we've seen taking place. This is the whole thing that man is afraid to deal with. So we had G-Man on last night, and he talked about the last days, or when you talk about the global elite, or when he talked about he deals with atheists on the rise. This brother deals with the majority of European atheists, and if you look at it, how much they hate this guy and how he deals with their subjective morality on what is good and what is evil, then this has to be addressed in the community. Of God, when we look at it, it says, you should be as God, knowing good and evil. That was true when the serpent told him that. But the lie was that man will die. Well, how do we define death? Death is separation. That is the whole overall definition of it. It's separation. How many deaths are there? There are 3 deaths. There's what you call eternal separation. And there's also what you call spiritual death. As Christ said, one is dead but really alive. In other words, he is alive walking physically, but he is spiritually dead. He is not woke. He is sleeping. This is when he says, let the dead bury the dead. So we got dead man walking, the walking dead walking around here. You walking around here, but you actually dead spiritually. What does that mean? You are not connected to the source. You can't comprehend spiritual conversation. You can't comprehend the words of God. You can't comprehend those things, so you're spiritually dead. So when Christ came and talked to them, he said, if I can't teach you, if I spoken to you heavenly things, earthly things, why should I speak to you? Heavenly things seem to me you can't really understand the earthly things just as well. So in order to understand heavenly things, you must be born again, not with the concept of being born in the womb, but being born of the Spirit, that vital spark. Even in the Egyptians, when you talk about the existence, the Heka is the vital spark upon the Ba. That vital spark, that things that spark you in the afterlife, or the Ka. So these are the things that we see that exist in the natural world and also in the spiritual world. So then the third death is physical death. Physical death is the material body, which in the Egyptian aspect is the Ha, which is the house of man, the house of his soul or his spirit. This is his house, his shell or his vessel, the him, as we see. This is his vessel or his essence, the body. So the vessel goes back to the earth, and once the vessel goes back to the earth, the energy that's in him exists still, and it is attached to the soul. The soul is the faculty that's in man, which is the seat of his emotions, his feelings, his passions, all his appetites, and his desires. Whereas the spirit that's attached to the soul is the intellect of that person. Whereas in the Egyptian aspect, those things are the Ka, the Ba, and the Ib. Then you have also the Ak. The Ak is the transfigured spirit, or the Aku, which is the transfigured or the exalted spirit. One that is exalted to a position to preserve Mayat in the afterlife and to be what you call the voice for those that are in the living. And these are what you call the ancestors that spoke in the dead for those that are living, or those that was over the forces that were unseen. Just like when they came to Jesus, he says, what did he say about Jesus? He said that this person is God. What manner of man is this that even he can control the forces of nature? That's a God. That's a judge. Because the forces, if you control the forces of nature, then you was looked at as a God. Because they use the forces of nature to judge human affairs or the material life of what they call in the Egyptian term Ishfef, chaos. Genin was noon, or the waters of the abyss. And there was balance, there was Mayat. But chaos came, which is the opposite of Mayat. And chaos was able to control the forces just as well as Mayat. So when we dealing with the spiritual world, or when we dealing with the biblical text, we see that there is some things that's in there that are similar. Where we see the angel that passes upon man, which is judgment, and the Pesach of the Passover, which is the judging angel, which causes death to come on them, because there is in between life and death blood. So therefore, between life and death, there is blood and judgment. We see that this also foreshadows appeasement and atonement, because it is the blood, as we see, that appease the gods, or that appease the heavenly one, due to the fact of man sinning and breaking his contract. Back in the days, they will cut themselves and put their blood on a documentation, and if they broke that covenant, or their blood would be given over due to the fact of them breaking the covenant. This is life. This is what we see in life. We got a caller. Let me press the number 1 and open up the 401. Hold on, let me grab this mic real quick, this screen, because I'm having a problem with opening up this mic. Change my screen. 401 Peace caller, your mic is open. You listen to G Conscious Radio.
Hey, what's up, man? Shalom, everybody. It's Yeshaya. What's going on, man?
Peace, Yeshaya. What's going on with you, brother?
Shalom, Yeshaya.
Hey, what's up, man? How y'all doing? I'm sitting back listening, man. And some key points, man. Some things I like. If you don't mind, man, I want to add on to something. If you don't mind.
Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
You was talking about the tree, how the tree basically represents information. Now, people may not take that as a literal story, but the simple fact of the matter is, the moral of the whole story is definitely inside of the language, because the word for tree is et. You know what I'm saying? Et. That's ayin and sadi. Now, it's also another word that et is a part of, using the hey, and that's etza, and that means advice or counsel. So, when you look into the narrative of Genesis, man, you see that the snake, took counsel with the woman. And before that, the Most High also took counsel with the man. You get what I'm saying? So basically, that whole story is basically trying to get us to understand that we can't take everybody's advice and we can't listen to everybody's counsel. You know what I mean? Now, when you break these words down, ayin, which means to see, spiritual sight, or to know, and you got the sadi, which means righteousness, but as you can see in the pictorial, it's a man on his side. And it also could mean to wait, to chase, you get what I'm saying? Or it can mean the other side. So here you have it that somebody wanting to know actually caused them to be on the other side or the lower side of the higher side, because that's basically what you're dealing with when you're dealing with that side eat. The higher self, lower self, and what happened is Adam and Eve, their knowledge has taken them to the other side of man, because man has two parts, spiritual and fleshly. So basically what it was showing how that they actually are more focused on the fleshly realm now, more into the carnal, more into the lower self, and they're not, on that higher frequency anymore. So, it really basically gives you the understanding of what's going on or what was going on in the garden to help you better yourself today. Because that means we all have choices, but our choices always start with what? Our choices always start with a counsel. You know what I mean? That's why the Bible says, seek ye wise counsel. Because a lot of people are only doing what they doing and saying what they saying and teaching what they teaching because somebody else gave them that information. All right? And the information that you hold is the key to the afterlife. As you was basically bringing out. So you was hitting on some key things. I just wanted to open that up so people can see that the Bible, regardless if you take it literal or you take it metaphorical, whatever, the concepts are so deep, and the language conveys the concept to the point where it causes a man to look at himself and say, am I doing the best that I can? Am I making the right choices? Am I seeking the right counsel? Because ultimately those things is what's going to alternate my future. Those things are going to get me to move beyond this life to the next life. Everything that I basically took in and everything that I was doing, am I diligently seeking this information, or am I diligently seeking if I'm doing what's right in the eyes of the Creator, or if somebody's thinking that maybe there's not a Creator, are you doing everything to find out if there's a Creator, or are you just sitting back reading a book, or just into science, or you're into something so much to the point where you're not even giving yourself a chance to seek, to get the information, to feed yourself, to see what type of alternation your mind will go through. Is it going to cause you to go to a high vibration or a lower vibration? Which I ended with this. The whole goal of man, and this is just more on a scientific, I'm using more scientific terminology with this. We die because we are not moving higher up in our energy source. You get what I'm saying? This is why we're dying, because just like a battery, we're losing power. But the Bible, what it brings out is that the more the source, all right, the more energy we'll be able to absorb and transmit, which will cause us to live a long life. I promise that by following the law, particularly respecting your mom and your father, because you have to seek their counsel. This is what a mom and a father is about, and they show the relationship of the female and the male principle of the Creator. So these things give us long-lasting life. Now, when we do die, the whole fact of the matter is, what energy level are you going to be on? Because even Paul said, when we see him, we will like him, even though we don't know how he's going to be when we see him, but we know we're going to be like him, because that's the only way we're going to be able to experience the Creator, at a certain point in our lives and in the afterlife. You know what I'm saying? We're going to have to become what he is. You know what I mean? So when this flesh is gone, we got to have that same energy, that same vibration that he has. And the only way we can do that, we have to mimic him. So it has a lot to do with polarity, has a lot to do with yin and yang, has a lot to do with good, evil, has a lot to do with making decisions, good or bad, and it has a lot to do with higher and lower self. You know what I'm saying? When
this what I see in it too, just as well. Now, when you look at Adam is given some instructions. He's given 2 trees which deal with information. He's given the tree of life, which is being conveyed there, and he's also given the tree of knowledge of good and evil. That's what he's given there. Now, I don't find it odd that the choice that he's given is life and death, because if he disobeys the instructions, then he introduces death into his paradigm. As the scripture says that, when it says that if you eat from this tree, the day you eat from this tree, you shall surely die, which, as I broke down before, death is no other than separation from the source, which is a cause of effect. Because if you cut from the source, which is life, then you will degenerate. You will degenerate spiritually, where you cannot understand or discern spiritual things or communication, which also cause you to die or be separated just as well physically. So this is a cause of effect, to where you are separated spiritually from the source, and also physically just as well. So when you look at it, the Hebrew word there is evil, which is Ra. Ra. Yeah, it's Ra. And the Hebrew word means calamity, adversity, grievous sorrow, trouble, distress, bad affliction. So what happens to Adam is he actually comes to a paradigm that he has taken on some information that can cause distress, calamity, affection, hurt, wretchedness. All of these things he invites into the physical realm of man and to everything that is subject up under him. And this is why the Bible says that through Adam all die. And this is why Paul says the whole creation is groaning for the manifestations of the sons of God. Why? Because when man come to a state to where he is attached back to God, which is what Christ, which is the power of God and the word of God came to do, to attach man back unto the Father. He is the mediator of the cord between God and man. He is that cord, which is that source, and that source which caused man to live. So man is dying due to the fact of he has detached himself from the source, as the book of Psalms 2 says, when it says man seek to break the cords of God, and God is laughing at them and said that he that is seated in the heavens shall laugh at them. The earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. So we know that when man begin to attach themselves back to the source of power, then that source of power is life, and in him is life. And therefore, if he is life, then in you will be life, and there is no death. And then God will be all in all. When God is all in all, there is balance. There is no death. Nothing dies in God. There is nothing but life. He is that source. So man introduced into his world death, as Paul said when he said, death came by way of one's transgressions, and by one's transgressions, death came on all man. By one's obedience, which is Christ, the gift should come into all men that receive him, which Christ is the mediator between God and man.
You ever notice why Abel's blood was able to cry out to El? Is because where he was at on earth and the position that he followed, in pleasing the Father. So he was very near to the source. Even when death occurred, communication was still being brought forth, because we know that El was in the physical realm at this time. So it's it's really neat when you looking into these things, man, and you really see how the psychological understanding that the book wants you to have is in your face, but at the same time, because people don't understand it, this is where the decay starts to happen. This is where basically, my people are destroyed from the lack of knowledge. It all goes back to this understanding of what information or what counsel are you seeking, what are you out here practicing, and is it beneficial, is it wholesome? So it's real unique. It's real unique, man. It's still an enigma too, in a sense, because it's so much that is conveying in that passage about our downfall that nobody is really scraping the surface neither. You know what I'm saying? Like, people got to think about that, man. There's extra things that happened in the past, man, that's not written down. You know what I'm saying? That man has experienced because of his inability, and I'm going to say inability due to the fact that we handicapped ourselves to get back into fellowship with the Creator. We made it so hard for ourselves. And that, naturally, people that are naturally, not naturally, but people that are so consumed with evil, so consumed with their own mindset, and so consumed with their way. And that's another thing. Sadi also means the way. So when you say etz, you're also saying knowing the way. So that's why the Bible also says, let him guide your steps, because a man thinks he knows the way, which is right, but it leads into death. So it all still goes back to that tree. You know what I'm saying? Like the analogies still go back to that tree. And if when people are in that mindset, and which is very dangerous, they don't want to be a part of that light, or they don't want to be a part of that energy, so they spend their time degrading it. You get what I'm saying? And you got to remember something too. Another key thing. And this is what we know today helps us decode the past. See, a lot of people don't believe that, but it does. All right. We know that woman is the weaker vessel because the woman represents something in the whole body of man and woman, just like the man represents something in the whole body of man and woman. You know what I'm saying? You got the strong side, you got the weak side, and we see that Satan had to do what? He had to appeal to the weak side. He had to appeal to the lower self side. And I'm not putting it in a way where, you know, I'm trying not to offend and make people think that women were born weak or something like that. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that Satan was able to do something to the mind of the weaker vessel, all right? Not that the weaker vessel, it being weak, is a problem or it's a handicap, but to personify man and woman and the humanity, the human race, to go into this lower self state, he starts off with the weaker vessel, and the weaker vessel appeals to the stronger side, which is man, as she also gave this fruit or gave this advice or this counsel to Adam. So what it did was it also it
hey, let me say this real quick, so because I know that I got to get this line. I'm going to open up this line. I think this is Unc because he just texted me. So let me open up his line because evidently he probably want to respond to what you're saying. Hold on. What's going on?
My lineup, man, got me on hold for an hour and a half. Listen to y'all, man. What's wrong with y'all, man?
You never pressed it. You're supposed to have pressed it number one. What's going on?
Nah, I'm just sitting back reflecting, just listening.
You chopping up though, Uncle, a whole bunch. You chopping up a lot. Can y'all hear him? Is he chopping?
Yeah, I'm still chopping. Is the phone still chopping up?
Yeah, you still chopping.
Yeah, you real choppy.
Hold on, man. Must be Jesus Christ mixing it up a little bit for me. Let me see if I can get it. How about now?
You got another phone you can call in on? Yeah, because you real choppy. Let me mute my mic. Hold on, let me mute my mic. Mute your mic too, Wayne, so we can see if that works.
My mic muted.
All right, how about now? You get better?
Still choppy.
Yeah, you still choppy. Yeah, you still choppy.
My phone, one of my phones, man. What's up with all that? Hold on. Let me
you might have to call in on another.
Hold on.
Go to another area in the crib or something.
Can't really hear you that much, but we hear you. We know it's something you talking crazy.
I ain't talking. Can y'all hear me now? How about now?
Nah, man, this ain't.
You still choppy.
Verizon commercial, man. Trying to see if we can hear you, man.
Metro PCS, man. You got to come up out that Metro PCS, man, down the.
I got 5 bars, nigga. Now, come on, it should be working now, yo. Still choppy.
Still choppy.
Yeah, call back in, man. Call back in. All right, I get the line.
Man. He had a lead roof or something. Something blocking that connection.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I hear you though, LaRon. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, what you touching on is definitely profound. And first and foremost, I'm gonna say this, man. Just to speak the truth, man. It don't matter how anybody want to take the Bible. It's the fact that the principles inside of it are so in depth with the human psyche, man, that it's hard to say that book is not needed to reach the goal of being righteous. You know what I'm saying? Now, people can pick on certain things that they find in the book, but the book is open to that. The book is open to that criticism. We're talking about a structure and a foundation that is for a people to be able to cohabitate with each other and respect each other. And certain guidelines and laws, rules, regulations, customs, whatever term you want to use, that will help perpetuate and benefit, the economics, the brotherhood, the sisterhood, the parenthood. These things are put in place to perpetuate those things when you have a people coming together, focusing on these laws, focusing on these stories, because the stories really do show you what's going on inside of the human mind today. You know what I'm saying? And when people can see themselves and take a good look in the mirror and say, this is how ugly I am, or this is how unrighteous that I am, that enables them to give them a choice to either stay the same way or to fix the problem, to fix their psyche, to fix the things that, has been placed upon them from generations of people doing things that were perverted or, spoke something harmful out, whatever. And the Bible is a real good tool for that. It is. It's a very good tool for that. It's been put in the wrong hands of people, and, it's a sad thing, but at the same time, man, we can't take away the glory of that book, man, because of the things that's been going on with it. It's the wrong people holding it. You know what I'm saying? They got to get into the right hands.
And see, that's why, like, once you bring it from a perspective to where they can see it, like, whether they want to get it naturally, allegorically, or figurative, you're still in trouble. You're still in trouble because when you look at it, it's telling you right then and there that, man chose this. He put this in his paradigm. Now, we must look at what if he had chose to life. And also, another thing we must look at, did he actually partake of the tree of life first, or was it, did he eat of the tree of knowledge and good and evil secondly, first? Which one? What would you think about that?
No, because it say man could have. It said he could have chose. He could have chose life and live. He could have chose life and live. He said, "I lay before you." That's what it's kind of referring to that.
Exactly.
When he talked to us, yeah, I lay before you life and death. So he had a choice before him. He chose the other one.
Exactly. Go ahead, Uncle Michael.
Let me say this. You know that, and on that note,
hold on, real quick, Mikael. Let me see if we can hear him. Go ahead.
Can you hear me now, yo?
Yeah, we hear you clear. Go ahead, Mikael. What you about to say?
I was about to say.
What you about to say, Mikael?
It's just like with mankind now, man. It's with anything. That story can relate over to a lot of situations, even in our everyday life. Because it's like whenever somebody of some authority, it's like when you was a little kid, they tell you, don't do this or don't do that. It's like that big red button. You know, on a cartoon, they like, whatever you do, just don't push the big red button. And the red button is just so tempting to go push. You know, when you have a multitude of options that'll be much more conducive for you in your future, but you just got to defy what feels right, man. And that's just, I believe that's in human nature to a degree.
Go ahead, Al.
No, I was just sitting back taking notes of the whole show. You know, like I'm a big believer in recognizing that nobody knows everything. Only a fool think you know everything. So, a lot of times I like to sit back and revisit some of the shows, to see what the brothers are talking about, because y'all could be outside robbing somebody acting crazy. You know what I mean? I know we got a lot of differences, but, I just respect black men coming together and black women coming together, to be honest with you, doing some shit that's positive. Whether I think the shit y'all talking about match up or not, I mean, that's another whole conversation. You know what I'm saying? But, it is what it is, man. And I hear what you're saying, Miguel, about the Bible and how it's a teaching tool. But I'll never forget the time we had that Kimon on trial, right? And for the life of me, the Hebrews could never see that the story between Horus and Set was that same thing that you was talking about just now. It was just a teaching tool, right? It was a tool teaching against homosexuality. And niggas couldn't see it to say they soul. They was like, they homosexual. I was like, man, they the nature, yo. They not real people, dog. They forces in nature. And they're giving you opposing forces, right, on what to do, what not to do when you're in certain situations. And so cultures have this. They have things in place. You know, niggas didn't have TV. You feel me? And so they wrote. So they wrote stories about things that should not occur. Because like you said, it's in human nature to do all type of shit. And so it's culture, right? It's culture that teach you and inform you on what to do and how to do and when to do it. It's culture to teach you when to attack. It's culture to teach you who your enemies are, who your friends are, who your foes are, right? It's culture that develops you. And that's basically our problem in North America, right? We follow a culture that has kidnapped us, kidnapped our minds, kidnapped our souls, our energies, our social understanding, every damn thing. And so until we recognize that it's culture, and that's basically what the fight is, it's a cultural war. At the end of the day, it's a cultural war. I fight, right, with traditional African culture. Plain and simple. I said there is no other way, right, for us but to fight, right, with the wisdom of our ancestors, which gives us room to add on and throw away shit if it was just dumb and didn't work. It gives us room for growth and development. Some people, you know, they fight with Christianity, which is another culture. Because remember, language is culture. You feel me? So, you know what I mean? I'm just, you know, I just be kicking it for real, man. And I never had no hard feelings with nobody.
All right, well, let me say something, LeBron.
Hold on, Mikael. All right, that's cool. I partially agree with what you're saying, but I'm going to tell you why I have to somewhat disagree with what you're saying just as well, because, for instance, a child, whether you want to say genetically, is something that's passed down, he has something embedded in him, and that's the conscience, which is his faculty. Now, if you look at two children and you put them in the room together, they can choose to share or not share. They can choose to be good or what's called. But we know that when we see another child that's not sharing with that other child, that right there within itself is a problem. There's something wrong with that. So what we must ask ourselves is, okay, we see this taking place. What causes this child to do that? Well, when you look in the biblical text, it gives you the origin to that. It gives you that man actually invited that into his paradigm. So it is somewhat culturally passed down, but it's also something that is genetically, because when that child is young, he has taken on that information or that supplement that we see, and that information that we see is causing him to have a duality within him, either what's right or what's wrong. So I agree with that somewhat, but not all the way, because some children don't know culture enough. That's right.
Yeah, but that's the teaching.
Let me say this though. Can y'all hear me? Yeah, let me say this though. But what the comparison off, man. Now, I will say this. You know, you got to keep it real. At the time of the Hebrew Kemet thing, it was like, you know, we in battle, so we gonna pick the most, you know, grotesque looking thing in there, and we gonna expound on that, because I've done it. But I mean, as far as you saying that you could see in the story that it was an aspect of good and evil, I think everybody saw that, because I mean, even the reaction of I think it was Aset, the mama, you know, after it happened or whatever. Yeah, she got pissed off, and it led to her. Right, and so it led to those actions. So that means at least we knew it was wrong to the mama, and it would have to be wrong to Horus or Heru, because he broke it out. You know what I'm saying? But to Set, you know, just if you just looking at the story as like we said earlier, as aspects of life even today, and not necessarily a literal story, but to Set, he was like that dude in the penitentiary that'd be like, well, I ain't gay, but I'll take your booty, because, you know, just to mess you up in the head. You know what I'm saying? So I can see that. I mean, just to be realistic, I can see that. So I see what you're saying.
But let me ask you a quick question, because do you know Seth and Horus, or what you call the followers of Horus, they had a capital, and also there was really adversity between these two peoples of the followers of Seth and the followers of Horus?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
You
But
talking about during the Hyksos
wasn't
time?
Seth considered a righteous God at one time before he got
Nah.
demonified?
Yeah, he was a Nubian god. Yep, absolutely was.
Yeah,
And then you got
that
the
story
Hyksos
came in
coming.
once the Hyksos is in I think as you say lower Egypt, whatever, that
Lower
story
Egypt,
really
Delta.
started to be developed. You know what I'm saying? So you can see where the concept was basically drawing the line as far as it was war. So, you know, of course this would be something we'll teach our kids, but the kids would know what actually happened. See, us on the outside, we wouldn't know that, oh, this story is to basically anthropomorphize what really happened as far as like a war. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's how it is with a lot of written text. You know what I'm saying? People read some things out of it, and they'll say, you know what, I'm taking this as little as I can take it because that's what it's saying. But you got to know what happened to the culture, who they was warring with, who they was trading with. So that story came about around the time the Hyksos was up there in Lower Kemet, man. So you had them worshiping Set, or you know, God that the storm god that they had that was closely related to Set.
And he was. Well, hold on. Let me say this real quick. Real quick. I gotta say this. You got 90 seconds to call in to hear the rest of the portion of this show. If you want to call in and hear the rest of it, it's 917-889-2233. 917-889-2233. 917-889-2233. Call in to hear the rest of the portion of the show. You will not be able to listen to it on the internet. You got a minute left. Go ahead, John. Go ahead, Wayne.
That's me. You hear me?
Go ahead, Wayne.
Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, that's me. But what I do want to say is this. I do believe that the ancient Egyptians had their way of conveying certain understandings about forces of nature, but the fact is, those forces of nature are real. You know, we got to keep that in mind. These things are real. It's just looking inside of a person, these energies move. So, you know, at the end of the day, whether you want to call it a god, a nature, or a spirit, whatever, these things do exist and they do run amongst our people. And if it is to edify the people and to make the people be wise enough, and you will not go down this path, then I think the story is very beneficial for certain things. So, even with any Bible, not even just any text, you know what I'm saying, anyone, you have to really know what these codes is, you know what I mean, explain certain stories so it can be beneficial for our kids not to follow down these footsteps of power, pride, greed, and sexual immorality, you know what I mean? You're supposed to extrapolate from, the ancient writers of the Bible understood those concepts because they used them. How when people get into stole or plagiarization, is like, no, these things are known because you got surrounding cultures that have a similar story or similar view because they're surrounded. You know, it's going to be similar terms, and then you got to think about it as well. Knowing that, you know, the Bible holds weight as far as when it says that the people was in Egypt, they got to pick something up there. If you was a nation in this on here, you know what I'm saying, you got to pick something up from there, and it's only right that you do from there because it's where you born at, so you have to take that somewhere, wherever else you go at, you know what I'm saying, you have to incorporate that into your system of, you know, morality or your codex, you know, that would justify you as a clan or a people or whatever. So, you know what I mean, I give respect to the, you know, the whole Egyptian, you know what I'm saying?
Let me say this real quick.
The Bible, all these texts, man.
Let me say this real quick. Now, you know that, like you said, when you look at the text, right, and you look at the story of it, it conveys actually two zones of people. Because if you say they came in if you say the story deals with it came in during the Hyksos period or whatever the case may be, you still dealing with what's that? Yeah, Wayne said that.
Go ahead.
When you say that these are two zones of people. Remember, these people are clans of people. You have the people of Horus or Heru feel that they are basically people of chaos that comes from either the East Sahara or either the West Sahara, but the desert people are people that are chaotic coming into the Nile Valley or the capital of Edfu or Horus, or when you talk about Edfu or Horus, where his capital was, they coming into this clan of people, and there's two zones, and in these two zones, these people that are the storyline that is telling is basically dealing with these people that I'm looking at it. Like you said, if it's conveying this, if it's conveying a story of people, I think that it's in literal dealing with the fact of these are two people, because the Falcon tribe is actually a people, and we know that because we find that these people are on certain relics and archaeology to where we see that there is also a capital that's down in Edfu of these people. So that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at it that a lot of these stories was conveying something, but at the same time it was dealing with literal aspects among these people, dealing with chaos, desert, the desert people coming from the desert into the Nile Valley, because the Nile Valley is fertile, so therefore they coming in causing chaos, because when you look at the geography of Egypt and their borders, they have certain relics that was supposed to protect what was coming from the east or what was coming from the west. And and they had those borders blocked off of those people that was coming in to cause confusion, because those people was coming into that fertile land.
All right. Interesting study right there, bro. So we know you got a lot of different people that inhabit the Nile. You know what I'm saying? We know we got Asiatics. You know what I'm saying? In the land. Yeah. So, I mean, it's just a good study, man. But the best thing qualified to use is science, and I know that's where y'all draw the line at. And really, basically, what I'm trying to figure out is, why is it, and maybe y'all can answer this for me, why is it on regular terms, right, that one, most people don't understand the scientific literature nor the terms, right? Two, we throw the word science around so loosely that we don't know correct uses of the term science, and we use, like, we'll say Kemetic science. You know what I'm saying? We say this, that, and the other. Yo, the Hebrews are science. You know how we throw that shit around real loose, right? But I'm trying to figure out, when is the community going to settle the fuck down, right? Stop allowing their hate for particular people, you know what I'm saying, to stop their growth as human beings on this earth. Meaning, if you're not technically sound and don't understand science, right, then you're going to lose in this world. Just like in the you had Stone Age technology, Stone Age science. You feel me? So why do, and maybe y'all can answer this, right? Why do everybody say the white man science? What's that about? I'm trying to.
I would definitely like to say I would love to chime in on that.
Yeah,
and I ain't gonna even be long. Yeah, I ain't gonna even be long.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna say this from my point of view, where I don't really say the white man science. I say Euro science, and I'm gonna tell you where I came with that concept. I know where you're going with it because I've heard you speak on it repeatedly, that you don't like when the science lines up even with your own study, that just because it's a lot of famous white scientists and in control of a lot of these, scientific, I would say the scientific community, just because you normally see white faces don't make the science itself a white science, because, you could say the science been around. They just advanced in certain technologies or whatever at this time. I would say I refer to certain science as Euroscience for the simple fact is I know for a fact it was science by definition around way before Europeans start getting into quote-unquote what we call science today. Now, the thing is, today, in that world, in the scientific community, and the things that we see that go back to the ancients, I would say in the eastern region, so that could be if you call yourself an African or Afro-Asiatic or whatever, that they wouldn't respect it as science because they didn't really understand it way back then. So if they look at it now with the advancement of modern day technology and stuff, they would look back on what we would call ancient science. They would just look at it as, it's beneath them because they don't really have control over it. You see, do that make any sense, what I'm saying? Do it. Do y'all get what I'm saying? Right. So when I see something that has been controlled by them, let's say like this new form of science, right? Like with the gene splicing and all that, it's some type of evidence that type of stuff went on in ancient times, but it's hard to see with the technology that we have today. But with the cloning and the DNA and all that type of stuff, it just has them written all over it sometimes. I think people can't detach it.
I disagree with what you're saying. See, you mentioned the question.
I said people. No, brother, you ain't let me finish.
No. But hold on, real quick, Mika. No, but listen, because you've been talking, and I disagree with what you're saying, because now this is what he's talking about. Now, in reality, what you must realize, when we talk about science, we're talking about experiment and observation, right?
Right.
So when you talk about testing, experiment, and observation, when you find stuff that have not been tested or experimented on or observated, that's not science. That is a philosophy and someone's ideal, right? And their theory, right? So that's what I'm talking about. So and that's what he's trying to ask you is because certain things that they say is science. For instance, what is the origin of man? If they can't tell us that, then they make an assumption for that. And what they try to do is they try to build a hypothesis behind that. So that's what we're talking about. So we're not. That's how we separate science and also Euroscience, or either what they call African science is someone coming with an ideal or philosophy, and they use scientific experiments. But sometimes we see that there's a science mixed in it, and there's also philosophy and assumptions mixed in it. So there's a difference.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying when you ask. But go ahead, though.
Because I still don't see what part you should understand what I said. Because what I said was, I said people can't seem to detach that from that. That's what I said. I don't know what you said. I said, like, for example, let me read this to you. Now, just listen to this. I don't know if you knew this was here. Now, these was Israelites. So this would be what I believe to be my people. About over 3,000 years ago. Listen to this. This is the book of Daniel, chapter 1, verse 4. It say, now listen to this. It say, verse 3, and the king spake unto Ashpenaz, the master of the eunuchs, that he should bring certain of the children of Israel, and of the king's seed and of the princes, children in whom was no blemish, but well favored, and skillful in all wisdom, and cunning in knowledge, and understanding of science, and such as had ability in them to stand in the king's palace. So what is that talking about? See, this is what I was talking about, that we had a form of science already. This is not nothing new. I don't know.
What's the Hebrew word?
He making it, what he's doing, he's making it. He asks you the distinction between, hold on, Wayne. He asking you the distinction between science. Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't keep going back and saying, well, pointing back to your culture of people. That's fine, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what is science and how do you define science. Not dealing with your culture of people, because your culture of people practice science too. But what do we all agree what science is? It's observation, and it's also experimenting and testing those things over and over again. Now, hold on. Let me say this real quick. Hold on. So I'm saying this. I'm telling you this. Now, when you talk about certain things that have not been observed, tested, or experimented on, that is not science. That's all I got to say. Y'all can go ahead.
I agree. Let me make this quick point though. Here's the interesting thing about it, and that's the difference between science and pseudoscience. Because
wait, real quick. Let me you know what I'm saying? Let me tell you my my understanding on what you was bringing forth real quick. My thing is this. I have no problem with science. I've been dealing with science at an early age. I'm not that good with it, but from my understanding, the religious terms are really no different from the modern scientific terms today, and that's what really keeps people separated. If they can understand that these terms are basically the same and that one goes into more depth than the other, then we can start placing science at particular levels. Like for instance, we know that science comes from the Latin word, which means to just know. You know what I'm saying? I don't really know how to pronounce it, scientia, whatever, but we know that means to know. So this is where the word science is coming from. So back then, science is more of a I know. I seen it. I'm saying it. Everybody know about it. Boom. That'd be considered science to them at this particular time. For an example, nobody experimented building a Giza and then kept experimenting and just tore the other stuff down that wasn't right and said, now we got it right this time. Like, that seems to me, that seems like that was just knowledge that was known. You know, today they have to study things to see, well, how can we, and, you know, we can actually analyze this under a scope and things of that nature. That's a different level of science. So what's really going on here is this. You have people that are dealing with the basic science of just knowing firsthand experience, all right? Then you have people that are dealing with another level of science where it's not just an experience to me as far as I got to see it. I want to know what's behind it now. Because science to me would be, I know if I turned on the light switch, the light going to come on. But an electrician knows why the light is coming on. It's a different level. So certain people are not on particular levels when it comes to science. Everybody deals with science. It's just what level you're on. So if you're saying that we should sit down and have it, we discuss this a certain degree or a certain level of science that we all should come in familiarity with, then I think that would be good, because then people will be able to not just only know or just see something and observe it. They're able to go into depth to explain it, and it can help them out with their faith. It can help them out with their economics, because they know the process of what's making this thing work. You know what I'm saying? And then on the flip side, like I said, I like science. I say God. You know, they say energy. I say God. They say energy. I say let there be light. They say vertical. It really is similar. It's just the terms. It's just the language, and the language is formed, and that's what caused them to be separated. So it's just different levels of science. That's really it.
Your phone sounds terrible.
Go on here, Ark. What was you saying?
This is the point I want to make right here.
You faded out.
When you hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, I'm saying when you deal with science, right, it's to know, but the thing is, how do you get to know? It's looking at results. It's producing testable results you can do over and over again. Here's where you made a mistake, right? You give credit to those who build skyscrapers in North America, where you get your quote-unquote, not even your first skyscraper, because the first skyscrapers is in Africa, right? We know that the pyramids was like part of the 7 wonders of the world and were definitely the first skyscrapers, right? And so white people didn't just, or builders period, didn't just fucking build a damn skyscraper. They had to over time develop techniques that would allow them to get higher and higher. But they get this base from Africa. So the Africans didn't just build no goddamn pyramid like that. You got the bent pyramid where the shit ain't even standing up straight. You got mistakes. Then you got to go to Nubia where they was building in mud first, because everybody built in mud first. Niggas ain't just start cutting stone, right? So they use math, which is a science, right? They use geometry, right? It was levels. They built on that. But remember the Egyptians, right? They came up with royal blue. Look it up. This was chemistry. So they was testing results, making mistakes, and then doing it over and over again. Right? So, okay, that's it, because I just came up with a formula to produce royal blue. Here, I'm going to give you the formula and you the formula, and based off of my notes and what I wrote, I want you to produce the same color. And so the next scientist would go in and try to do is like, nope, I didn't come up with that. No, so wait a minute, made a mistake.
No, hold up, wait. Let me just clear this up real quick.
Hold on. Don't cut. Let him speak. Go ahead.
So they would go back into the drawing board, right? A person would come up with a formula again, right? This is how I got this result. Another person has to take it and using the same math and the same things he came up with, the same measurements, he has to produce that same thing to be correct. And so niggas been doing it since the Stone Age. You can take a Stone Age tool and say, how did I get that tool that way? Well, I did this, and this. Produce that again, right? And then, okay, now this is how this technology is developed this way. That's important. And this is a mistake everybody makes. Charles Darwin, for the life of me, I don't know why y'all don't really study him. Charles Darwin, and you can back me up on this, LeRon. Charles Darwin, during his time, they didn't have no hominids. No ancient fossils of human beings. They ain't have none of that shit. So then how did Darwin come up with what he came up with? He went around the world and he just simply studied the natural world. He studied on an island. He looked at different things, different birds, different beasts. He observed all that.
Didn't he start in the Galapagos Islands?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I studied Darwin.
Hold on, let me finish this, though. So based off of what he was looking at, right, he said, damn, whenever I go to a place, right, and I find these old bones, you know what I'm saying, the oldest bones, that's where that thing started at. He said, so hell, I'm in Africa, right? I find these gorillas, these old ancient gorillas that I don't find nowhere else. He said, so based off of that, I deduce that human beings too started in Africa. Now, he proposed that. And so for the last 100 years, right, watch this, right, he proposed natural selection. He said the natural world puts pressure on things to transform it. A Hebrew would say that Yahweh puts pressure on things to form it. That's cool. But I'm telling you, yo, he just observed things. And so scientists, as they got better, as they found fossils, right, they started to say, damn, what he was saying was correct. And they tested the results over and over again, and they came up with more mechanisms. This is how they reached their conclusion. So for the life of me, why don't we understand that black people in Africa did the same motherfucking thing before Darwin bitch ass did? They looked at their natural world, they looked at the shit that was dead, different trees, and deduced that, wait, everything has a commonality based off of us observing this. So I don't know why we get all stuck and panties in the fucking air because the white boy Darwin came up with some shit that your ancestors did thousands of years before that. This shit is funny to me.
All right, now, well, hold on. Let me say something real quick. I might have articulated that wrong. What I was saying is that today, from our perspective, we don't know how these people did certain things. So it's just knowledge to us. We know it, but we have things now that we can test in our era that we can actually have a certain degree of science too. That's basically what I was trying to say. I wasn't saying that they didn't have any scientific methods or anything like that back then. We know that they did. It's the fact that when you got people looking at certain nebulas and there's no telescopes back then, you got to think about it like, well, damn, how did they do it? Now, we know, you know what I'm saying, it had to be a scientific route, but we just know now. Today, we just know that when it comes down to the ancient things, you know what I'm saying, today we can get into a university. We can understand how things work for our generation is what I'm basically trying to say. Like, there's different levels, and certain people are comfortable in certain levels of science that they're in. Like me, for instance, I have no problem with science except for the things that may be romanticized about
Somebody
science.
need to mute their mic.
Like,
go ahead, though.
A carbon dating isn't always accurate. It can be off by 500 years. DNA testing isn't always accurate. But I'm saying I don't have a problem with these things. I just have a problem with the fact that people would try to romanticize these things as they're just 100% accurate. I have problems with that type of science. I don't have a problem with no science. I don't have a problem with looking at certain things that dealing with the cellular structure of man or how the cosmos work, cosmology, or anything like that. That stuff interests me actually. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I just know that there's a terminology.
Real quick, I got to ask this dealing with Darwin. I got to ask you this with Darwin because...
After you, LeRon.
I got to ask this question because...
Hold on, Wayne. Before you ask the question about Darwin, I want to tell Wayne that he's right. That's why, and I think we should take time out, right? Because I'm going to tell you that science and religion is two different pieces right there. right? So you can be a Hebrew and say, God damn it, it was God, Yahweh, that pushed evolution forward. And I couldn't argue with you because evolution does not state where life comes from. I promise you it don't. It don't got shit to do with that. And then somebody else could say, well, the aliens did it. And I couldn't argue with you because evolution simply seeks to explain why life on Earth is diverse and everything has a common ancestor. That's it. And so when you mention, last point, Wayne. So when you mention carbon date, you're right. That's why they don't use one carbon date. They take about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 carbon dates, and then they multiply it and subtract it and come up with a date. I promise you. And they don't just use carbon dating. They'll use 9 other dating processes. But this would take y'all to look at a real scientific article, right, and how they come and arrive at their dates. And y'all say, you know what, man, I've been arguing the wrong fucking point the whole time. So no, they don't just use carbon dating based off the things you're talking about. So you're right about that.
Well, let me explain this real quick. Let me show you.
You're right too. I'm not agreeing with the evolution as far as the way evolution is
you don't
described.
Have to. You don't have to.
No, listen what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. What I'm saying is, though, but when we're reading these texts, right, and people are talking about life coming out of water, and moving in the wind, like these are the things people do have to take into consideration. Whether evolution was something that happened in a short period of time in the beginning, whatever, you know what I'm saying? Is the simple fact of the matter is, yes, people really should look into these things and these terminologies because it'll help advance their understanding, and it'll help them with their God. It helps me what I got.
Let me say this real quick. Let me say that. Hold on. Let me say this real quick. Now this is what I have a problem with because
with Darwin?
When you look at Darwin, you said with Darwin, you said two things. You said that he never talked about what was the origin of species, but it's entitled The Origin of Species. He never gave us the origin.
I said evolution.
Exactly. So when you talk about evolution, did he ever give us the origin of species?
Man, Darwin wasn't right about everything, dog. No, he didn't. They didn't say.
Okay, I'm asking you that question. Did he? Okay, so he never gave us the origin of species, and if he did, he said natural selection. Now I have a problem with some of this because one of the things I have a problem with is when we see that number one, you said out your own mouth is that we don't know the origin of evolution of how something evolved.
No, I said
Darwin.
I said where stuff come from. Like don't nobody know
where
stuff come from. Right.
I mean, it's really the same thing when you look at it. It's really
not.
Don't nobody know that.
Let's keep it science. Let's keep it scientific.
That's cool.
All right, go ahead.
Well, let me finish. Now, look. Now, when you deal with Darwin, he talked about the origin of species, right, by way of natural selection. Now, there's what you call irreducible complexity. Now, you have what you call irreducible complexity because you have different things that function that is complex and cannot be put together by natural selection, but only can be put forth by design. That's what we did with irreducible complexity. Now, hold on. This is what I'm saying.
You get that, though, right?
Okay,
let's qualify. Hold
on. Let me.
No, listen. Go ahead.
You can say that it's not real. That's what you can say. But see, that's your ideal that it's not real.
No, I'm saying it doesn't stand up to the scientific thing that we were just talking about. That's all. You know, you can find
hold on. Okay. Well, let me. Yes, it does. I'm gonna tell you why I say that because. Well, hold on. I'm gonna tell you why it stands up. Let me finish because you said out your own mouth what Darwin looked at was something on a micro scale. Would you agree to that?
Macro. Not
no,
micro.
Darwin
macro.
didn't.
Looked at large scale shit.
Hold on.
Darwin grown animals.
Well, hold on, but he looked at something on a micro scale. He didn't look at anything on a macro scale. You know why? Because he never observed anything turning into anything or splitting off from anything. He only observed the variations. Hold on. Listen. He only observed. Let me finish. He only observed the variations among what? What was it?
The birds.
Well, hold on. Let me ask you a question. And the beaks. And then at the end of the day, was it still a bird?
Yes.
Okay, so he observed microevolution. Now, when you talk about macroevolution has never been observed. Now, you may say it's microevolution. Microevolution is on a smaller scale, and then we see that macroevolution is a larger scale, but we've never seen it observed. So what you would say to me is, you would say, well, there are certain chromosomes that are the same as certain genetic traits that are among us. From the chimpanzees also to the man, which there were different molecules of the amount of changes in them that are similar. So we see that those things are there, but that does not make it to where you see macro evolution or no design in it.
Watch this. I promise you, you just misinform people about evolution. Evolution don't teach that. I am telling you that you only can observe populations. If you sit back and look at the whole population, right, you can see the macroevolution. It happens in the population. It doesn't happen to one thing. Evolution don't teach that a duck transformed to an alligator, a quack duck. It don't. That's not evolution. That's the shit that the crazy ass, real crazy white people, and this is white people alone, come up with this shit. That ain't what evolution don't teach. That don't nothing just jump from a horse to a damn cow. That's not evolution at all. And with evolution,
that would defeat the fact of irreducible complexity.
Right, and that's not real. Listen, whenever you say that, you're talking about the creationists, the white boys, the real white boys came up with that shit to try to combat against science. That's what I'm trying to show y'all. If we can get on the same page, and I can show you that. Let me finish. Go ahead, brother. Go.
No, I'm sorry, but you know what would be a good example? Remember when we was discussing about the nukes and how the different species basically can't mate with each other. So, you know what I'm saying, you can see little things change, you know what I'm saying, with inside of a biological organism, that things will change. You know what I'm saying? So and we know that they found who basically, you know what I'm saying, the oldest one. But we know that these come from one source, but they still had certain mutations that would not allow them to be able to breed with each other. So you're right about that. I think that would be the perfect example to state for the people to hear it as far as what evolution really is versus,
what niggas keep saying what they keep saying, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
It's terrible. Because the Hebrews, think y'all read the Bible? Hold on, y'all read the Bible, right?
For sure.
Please tell me in the damn Bible that the goddamn creation story ain't fucking talking about evolution. Somebody tell me it's not. Tell me it's not, and I'll say y'all crazy.
That's what I was telling you. You have certain texts inside of the Bible that talks about life coming from water, animals coming from water. So what was in the water before?
How did they conclude that? How did they conclude
that?
But this is what I'm saying, though.
Let me just say this. I ain't gonna take that long.
Go ahead, Mikael.
Yeah, I try to get mine in quick because I know we got some strong lungs. Look, right. Let me say this, y'all. Yeshaya, LaRon. Yeshaya, I already ain't got no question for you, but I got a question for and I got a question for LaRon because something LaRon said earlier and something you said which kind of coincided. Now, do you agree though? And you will see what I was saying. Do you agree that all of mankind, African, European, whatever, has to have, there has to be a common science, because I think that's what you're saying, that crosses all lines. It's just a common science, right?
It ain't no such thing as a common science, dude. It's just science. You know what I'm saying? Meaning you
cool.
Can
no, that's cool. That's the answer I wanted.
Go ahead.
That's actually the answer I wanted, bro. That's the answer I wanted because I was gonna say it's a lot of philosophies and also theoretic stuff that has been passed off as science. We agree, right?
I agree with you. Yeah, you right on it now. Cool. You on that shit now.
Cool. No, I've always recognized that. I've always recognized that. Now, with that being said, like when you brought up, you see evolution in the by the sheet of the Genesis story. You see evolution in that.
He was right in front of your face.
I don't though. I don't, because he specifically said every seed after his own kind. And I believe that is because, he knew that these
certain future philosophies is going to come up. Now, if you listen to people who believe in the Big Bang Theory, I've seen them go to the Bible in Genesis and say that that's the Big Bang, where they say he spoke, let there be, and let there be light, and they say that was the bang, boom, and that's how. I can't reject that either way. You see what I'm saying? I can admit when I just could say, well, maybe, they just figuring out what God was saying, and they just put it in a observing type of way where they think because they didn't really see it happen, but, they just come with their theory. Okay, now, LaRon, with that being said, this is the point I was trying to make. Now, just give me a second for this one. Don't cover your ears. Y'all know you're going to want to jump out the window.
It's all good. I ain't going to jump
out the window. Because Hebrews in that Bible. Now, listen to this, LaRon. I know how you say it in Hebrews in that Bible. Now, watch this. LaRon. Watch this, LaRon. Hey, but look, right, this question for LaRon. This is clearly what I was saying. I want to ask you, LaRon, do you feel, because I know you understand it, but do you feel what this is saying? Listen to this real clear. This in 1 Timothy, right? It's only 2 verses, chapter 20, and this is advice. Listen to what it says. O Timothy, keep that which is committed to thy trust. Avoid profane and vain babbling and oppositions of science, falsely so called. So it's some false science. Listen to this. Which some professing have erred concerning the faith. What do that mean to you?
I think it's dealing with. You said falsely. What again?
It's I'll keep it on the short end. It's avoiding profane and vain babblings and oppositions of science, falsely so called, which some professing have erred concerning the faith.
I think it's dealing with basically philosophy that's not science, whatever.
Okay.
Anything that people are philosophizing.
Okay, cool. And then I ain't got no argument then. Y'all both cool.
Didn't the Hebrews grow food?
You say what?
They did agriculture. They grew, and I know it's fine. I know where you're going. Yes, they did.
That's fine. I'm just on some real shit. Like I just be joking sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
No. Okay, we don't have no problem with science. What we have a problem with, there's no problem with science. Well, no. Here's the problem. The problem is there are certain things that are based upon ideals and assumptions.
Like what? I know, like what though?
Hold on. Let me tell you what. Now, for instance, you talked about macroevolution, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I must ask you about macroevolution, or would you agree that you would have to know organic evolution, the origin of all life?
No, man, that's something different, man. I'm telling you, the evolution is not that.
Hold on.
So now you're talking about organic evolution. Listen, dude, human evolution and organic evolution is different because now you're looking for how life came to be. That's not what the theory of evolution is not really concerned with that. It's concerned with why life on planet Earth, right, has common ancestors and why is it so diverse? Why is it that DNA in a chimpanzee and DNA in a human match up 98.8%? Why is that?
Because it has the same designer. That's why.
That's cool. Listen. Okay.
But
yeah, that's what I
One is longer than the other, though. You know what I'm saying?
That's what y'all just did, though. That's what y'all just did. Mecca L, you know what he said? He said, well, it say after his own kind. But do y'all not forget, right, that according to the Hebrew doctrine, that all things come from God? And so here's the question that's going to checkmate y'all. If all things come from God, why this? Hold on, let me finish. If all things come from God, what did God use to make everything? God ain't got nothing to use but God.
Itself. He uses itself.
It. So then, hold on.
Let me
finish.
I don't see what none of us are disagreeing. I don't disagree.
Wayne, you gotta
disagree with what you propose.
Wayne, let me finish, Wayne. Let me finish. So God has to have DNA because that is the shit that make mechanisms work. Is DNA. All right. So everything extends from, quote, what your religion is. This God that has DNA in everything, and that is the common thing. So just call it God. But the fight against evolution is crazy as hell. Because you would have to give a better explanation.
Now let me say this.
It don't make sense.
And hold up. Let me say this. You see, this is why people, you know what I'm saying, in some senses, man, some people have to be probed, man, because the Bible does leave room for one to, you know what I'm saying, come up with certain hypotheses that may be more suitable to understanding the text. Me, like I've been saying on the phone, and this is an idea that I always had just by reading the Bible and a little bit of science that I've looked into, because like I said, I'm not that heavy on science, but I do like it. It amazes me. I don't believe everything evolved. See, it's a difference, and I don't believe in a time span that scientists today are giving evolution. And just like you just said,
what's your reason though? Have a reason.
The reason is because the reason is because there's not empirical proof that evolution took millions and millions of years. There's no empirical proof on that. That is still a hypothesis. Because even with dealing with the new situation, even with dealing with the new situation, they're trying to say that was a speedy evolution. So that means evolution got years to it now. So that means one can't sit up there. Huh?
They've been said that though. It's called rapid evolution. You never heard that?
But that's what I'm saying. I don't believe it. That's you got to understand what I'm saying. I don't believe everything evolved. I believe certain things were made, set the way that they were. Things had to go into what they were, and I think other things had to come from probably something smaller, single-cell organisms or whatever. I don't believe everything.
No, but
that's what I'm trying to tell you.
Right.
I don't believe everything evolved.
Hold on. Watch this. Why wouldn't some things not evolve? Because like a turtle, right? The turtle been that way. Like, how about a roach? It's been that way for 2 million years. I mean, 250 million years, 200 million years. Because some things are made that just can put up with nature and the surviving nature, so there is no need for it to change.
Hold on. The turtle did evolve. Hold on.
Now you know a roach been the same way.
Wait, hold on. The turtle did evolve.
You got fossilized roaches to go back 300 million years.
Hold on. Listen. Let me say this. The turtle did evolve. The turtle did evolve because would you agree?
Yeah,
okay, because would you agree? Hold on. Would you agree that we got different variations of turtles?
No, listen, I'm agreeing, but I'm just saying, but the basic design of a turtle has not changed it's a dinosaur.
Exactly, like that new, because it says a seed, it says of its kind, right? Now, all newts they have to stem from one newt. They have to stem from two newts, however newts it was that was formed and made. So that means that they came from their kind, but there's still an evolution taking place inside the reproductive system. This is common logic, you know what I'm saying? We're gonna look at it from that scientific standpoint.
Let's get this straight. It's microevolution but see, here's the thing: it's microevolution. It's not the type of macroevolution that he's talking about. For instance, when you talk about, hold on, I'm gonna tell you why I say that, because when you talk about something split off from something else, or organism. Okay, for instance, when you talk about, let's talk about organic materials.
Let's talk about.
Hold on. Listen.
You have certain. Hold on.
No. Let me speak. Hold on, Wayne. Let's talk about non-living material coming to life and becoming organic material. So if you want to talk about evolution or macroevolution,
what you want to call What you want to call non-living? The sun? The sun ain't living.
Hold on. No, that's a non-living organism. That's a chemical. So let me ask you a question. If you talk about 20, you talk about it takes 20 amino acids for the building blocks of life, then you have to explain that. How do you get all these
I can't explain that, man, nigga. Shit.
Okay, well, hold on for a minute. If you can't,
let me throw a term out, LeBron.
I got a doctorate in evolution.
LeBron, let me throw a term out real quick, LeBron. LeBron, what you just said was pivotal, because check this out, right? That evolution talks about, and trust me, I'm not for the evolution that mainstream pushes. I have my own ideology concerning that. You know what I'm saying? I don't disagree with evolution.
Why don't you propose it?
I would if I ever was able to, get a chance to, get real deep into it. I do know enough that it's not just empirical evidence that they have that they're standing on right now that can just push out this billions of years of evolution to me. You know what I'm saying?
That's not the truth. That's not the truth, though. That's the point I keep trying to make you is that
that's the case,
science does not mean they know. No, science don't mean they know everything, though. See, that's the point y'all keep missing. The
Nah,
science
you're right.
does not state.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing. What I'm telling you is I do have disagreements.
You could be right, though. Right, you could be right.
I do have disagreements with inside of science, but I do not disagree with where science is trying to go and trying to explain it because it's the best best that they can.
But what they got
let me throw this.
Okay.
What I do love about evolution is this. And I look up definitions and things of that nature. You have what you call natural selection. All that means, because a lot of people want that means non-living into living. That's not what that means. It just means that man did not make this or man did not cause this to be. Then you got selection, which means carefully chosen for a specific reason or the best situation at hand or certain things that happen around whatever it is that's evolving. You know what I'm saying? The cause some transformation or some changes or whatever like that. That's all natural selection means. So when people
it basically means nature. It means
this nature
has selected it due to the fact of climate and diet, environment and diet. That's all that means. But that doesn't explain the origin of. But hold on. That doesn't explain the origin of radioactivity and the. Hold on. Listen though. That doesn't explain the origin of life and also why radioactive activity and particles break down.
We ain't even talking about that shit.
Listen, I'm just bringing that. The reason why I'm bringing that out is because even though we see that, number one is we see nature or the environment or the diet is actually selecting what's living, but in reality, here's what's happening. This is what they don't tell you. The genetic or the genome. Come on, bro. Like, listen, the genetics or your genetics or your DNA, your chromosomes are building up mutations, and these mutations are due to the fact of the environment and the climate. Now, what he's not telling you is those mutations become to be harmful because eventually you're gonna die out. You're gonna die out eventually if you don't evolve or if something in nature is due to these mutations. You die out. It's like a mutation self burnout. But it's like besides your phenotypes, besides your phenotypes, those mutations are causing us to actually expire and die out because it's built upon our genomes. Yeah, you definitely can read that.
Where you gonna read that? Where is that? You know I like to read, yo. Let me see. That's the first statement I heard all night. Let me read it. Yeah, because I swear, yo, I don't know every motherfucking thing, yo. I promise you that. I would like to read that. Where you reading that?
I give you the article. I give you an article. because bottom line, because if you say, would you agree that environment and also diet is what caused the mutations?
Yeah, but you can get a negative mutation or positive, a deleterious mutation. I was trying to tell a fucking scientist in the museum, and he was fucking stupid. He didn't even understand deleterious DNA. He had me thinking I was saying it wrong. So Europeans have more deleterious DNA than the African do. So if you want to talk about somebody fucking expiring, goddammit, you deal with the Europeans. They
both degenerate. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. They both degenerated because they both taking on. Look what they taking on. They taking on radioactive particles, right, from the environment. Yep. So they take on radioactive particles from exactly. Exactly. So when they're taking on those, it causes speciation and also due to the fact of radiation, right? So we know it's radioactive. It's going to break down. It's going to decay, right? So we see that they take on these particles. Exactly. So when they take on these particles, the animals take them on, the plants absorb them, and we eat from the animals and the plants, right? So therefore, we're radioactive within us, and we decay and we degenerate. Now, the mutations is due to the fact of the environment. Exactly. So if the environment is messed up, guess what's going to happen? The ozone layer messed up, and the radiation is entering into the ozone layer, and it's slapping around because it's unstable. No, it has a lot.
What the hell? What did I do with evolution?
That's what evolution is started from. It started from evolution is started from speciation or radiation. You just said it.
Speciation, man. That's just the diversity of species, man.
It's due to the fact of radiation.
Like dung beetles, yo. They the most specious.
Oh, yeah, I knew the dung beetles.
But hold on. But how do they become? How does diversity start with them?
Hold on, watch this. Tell me where I'm wrong at. Why is it that a white boy, see, this is how much credit we give to the white boy. The white boy, Charles Darwin, in his book, Origin of the Species, wrote a subchapter on dung beetles. It's on record that the white boy studied dung beetles. Why can this white boy study dung beetles and understand evolution to the point where scientists today is adding on to the foundation that they think he laid? How come the African, right, in the Nile Valley, this nigga studied dung beetles? He studied them so much so that he makes dung beetles deified as the mechanism that pushes life and transform. And hold on, yo. Come on, yo. If I'm crazy, say, you crazy as fuck. The Africans deified dung beetles. They deified the dung beetle, man, and gave it a name called Kepida, and the name translates as that was transformed and changed and fucking evolved. Why do we give credit to the white boy in dung beetles who would never admit that niggas in the valley, the Asiatics that went back and forth, take stories to the motherfucking Middle East, and they all talk about shit to transform? Why we gotta keep giving credit to the white boy, yo? And then we fight this evolution.
I'm gonna always say that the Euro science is founded upon science. You know what I'm saying? From our ancestors, I'm gonna always say that.
But that's the truth.
That shouldn't be anything. Nobody.
But they keep fighting that shit.
You know what I'm saying?
They fight it like
anybody's arguing from that point of view. Then that shows that they really don't look into the.
I appreciate
basically, Charles Darwin, he knew something about Africa. That's bottom line. He had to lead to something.
Remember, he wasn't taught on this subject. Y'all do know this, though, right? That he was an autodidact on that subject matter, meaning he didn't go to school for that shit. He wasn't even a fucking scientist like everybody thought he was. He taught his motherfucking self. How the fuck did the white boy teach his motherfucking self, and then we not give credit to niggas in the valley doing the same shit, or niggas in the Middle East?
I'm going to say this, though. The only problem I got with that dude is the fact that, you know what I'm saying, from the things that I've been hearing, is the fact of, him trying to push this supreme race thing with, whites and stuff like that.
Why don't you buy the book and read it yourself, though, Wayne?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And then you'll be talking like me, and they're going to think you crazy. They're going to say,
but listen,
wrong with Wayne?
I'm just saying, those are the things I heard.
Let me say this,
what I'm telling you, that's the only thing I can have a problem with this dude about. You know what I'm saying?
No,
because
you shouldn't have a problem if you read the nigga book first. We don't read white Nick. Y'all know it. Niggas be talking Bible, and don't read the Bible. Y'all know it. Y'all know it.
I know what you're saying.
Be having the Bible shit. Nigga, you
I know what you're saying.
A comedic nigga I mean, at least shit about the Bible and ain't read the motherfucker.
I feel you 100%. If you're gonna speak on something, at least peek in the damn book. So I agree with you. So my thing is this.
Like, I don't argue down Mikael when you start
talking about No.
That's why I said.
Let's not drift too far. Hey, hold up, Yeshaya.
That's why I said I heard it.
Let me say something, bro.
I ain't really get to read into that, man. I heard it.
Let me say something, bro. Hey, let me say something real quick, bro. Let me say something, right? Look. No, I was really laughing because I knew you was this. This why we you good people, man. That's why we used to get into it, though, because you real slick. I knew you was gonna slide that Dookie beetle in there, and you know what? You got the right to do that because the sun disk it is in Egypt. It was there a long time before the Europeans got to deal with it. So you can use that's your valid argument, and you can't really debunk that. Okay, I'll give you that.
Is in Israel too?
Hey, look, let me say this. Let me say this.
Sure is.
No, let me say this. Let me ask this. No, look. Let me ask y'all this, though. Let me ask let me ask G-Con, let me ask Yeshaya. Now, listen close what I'm about to ask. I don't subscribe to evolution, but I recognize adaptation. Now, listen, before you say it, how the hell you going to, let me ask, do you feel from your study that evolution, the theory of evolution, well, it seems to be more of them now, more than one now, does it have to be synonymous? Does it have to be synonymous with adaptation? That's for everybody.
Yeah, because that's a mechanism in evolution. It's called adaptation. Absolutely. Damn right. So
yeah, but what he explained what you explain is not is actually what you see. That's why you just actually defeated yourself with trying to explain macroevolution, because when you look at the dung beetle, that's intelligent. And so when you talk about intelligent design, this is not the process of what you call macroevolution, because it's still a dung beetle. This is the process of this intelligent.
That was nasty, G-Con. Ooh.
You just described intelligence. That's all you did. So when you talk about irreducible,
you probably should have the up-to-date magazine and science, yo. When they what they really figured out was that nature is the intelligence. That there is nothing that nature itself is intelligent.
That's why it's called natural selection. That's why I try to read that term.
It transforms certain shit. If it makes a mistake here, it fix it over there and correct it the same way we correct shit.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that because I'm gonna tell you why I say nature. There is no consciousness in nature. I'm gonna tell you why I say that, because consciousness means awareness. Now, if you know this, and you should know this, you talk about there is intelligence in nature. Now, there is what you call laws that govern nature, right? There's laws that govern nature. And the reason why there's laws that govern nature, because guess why? Because when you look at nature, nature is not aware of man. I'm going to tell you why it's not aware of man. Because nature, yes, exactly. In other words, nature will come and you will see chaotic forces. For when you see hot and cold mixed together, it causes tornadoes, right? So when it causes this tornadoes, or what we call chaos, this will basically cause man. It's not aware of man to the fact that it's harming man, as whereas man, and where man himself is a conscious being, to where he manipulates nature, basically. Because that's what we're doing now. We're manipulating nature. We're actually coming up with we're dealing with laws to govern ourselves, to deal with laws of gravity, on how to manipulate gravity, and as far as building planes and different things like that. So when you look at it, nature itself is not in the aspect of conscious or aware of other individuals, like the sun. If there was not no ozone layer, the sun would still burn your ass up. That's because it's governed by law. And the law lets us know that there is consciousness, because guess what? We are lawgivers. So we talk about intelligent design, because we ourselves give laws to govern ourselves. So therefore it has to be a lawgiver that was given to govern nature, for nature to govern itself, basically.
Woo! I'm saying that I argued with y'all wrongly, right? And even giving a fuck about what you thought intelligent designer was, that was the wrong argument. That's what I'm telling you. So I'm reorganizing my argument to recognize y'all can have all that shit right there. I'm just talking about evolution and how you just misused the term of macroevolution. You do not understand what macroevolution is. I hate to tell you, scientists don't even separate macroevolution from microevolution. So let's read a scientific definition of what macroevolution is. Let me read it.
I want to bring something. I want to bring something that can do that too.
Let him go
after you do that.
Listen, it's a macroevolution. Is evolution on a grand scale what we see when we look at the overarching history of life, stability, change, lineages, arising, and extinction. Plain and simple. So you got to sit back and look at the whole picture and say, damn, look at them fossils right there. Look at them fossils right there. Look at these niggas right there. That is macroevolution. When you look at
and you interpret the information.
Whales,
you interpret it.
Listen, hold on. Wait. No, you know interpretation. You know that a scientist can
you
have something and think
so
they got something in exchange. No, you listen. Listen what I'm trying to show you, bro. When you look at the history of whales and you put all the different types of whales together, you realize that these motherfuckers have been transforming and changing over time. And as you date certain bones, you can see which one is earlier, you know what I'm saying, which one are older, what comes first, what didn't. You know that. So you got to look at the whole population. You can go to India and find an elephant. You can go to Africa and find an elephant. The African bull elephant is larger than the Asian elephant. Why?
That's variation.
That's
variation. That's microevolution.
I was going to bring up the bears, the brown bear, the black bear,
What about
the
the brown
Kodiak,
bear and the black bear?
Kodiak
Why
bear.
the fuck is the
They
white
have
bear white?
One has thicker skin, secretes an oil that allows it to, be in freezing temperatures to swim.
Well, it comes from the brown bear.
They came from the same, and we know they came from the same ancestors.
Hold on. Listen, bro. That's what you call microevolution. That is not
macro. That's macro. That's macro because you see a variation in the species.
Hold on. Well, listen. Hold on, bro.
That's like
wait. I'm gonna mute your mic, bro, because you steady talking. You don't know what you're talking about. Look up microevolution, bro. It's variations within a species. Macroevolution is on a larger scale change. Now, would you agree that it's still a goddamn neat bird?
Yeah. Why do you, bro? You always do that to me. Like, I don't understand you, bro.
Because you steady
no,
talking.
It's not.
It's
not, bro.
No, you were steady talking, and I was trying to
explain. That you have to...
He cut out, didn't he?
Yeah, he cut out.
I don't know, but anyway, man, like, it's macroevolution.
Listen, bro. Listen.
You can clearly see.
Listen, bro. Hold on.
You can
listen,
clearly
bro. Look
see
up the definition right now. Listen, bro. Look at the definition right now, bro. We've been
doing
this for a long time. I did this live,
bro. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me look up macroevolution real quick, so we can go ahead.
No, look up microevolution, bro. Look up microevolution. Why would you look up macroevolution?
It says macroevolution is evolution on a scale of separate gene pools. Macroevolutionary studies focus on change that occur at or above the level of species, in contrast with with this difference between microevolution. Hold up.
It says contrast. You just smashed yourself, bro.
Oh, my goodness. Hold up, bro. Let me finish the definition. Which refers to smaller evolutionary changes typically described as changes in allele frequencies within a species of population.